Hey, Warren G here from Dice Tower, and I'm bringing you a video about your starter set. Now, in our last video, we kind of opened our starter set and took a look at what we had inside it. Well, today, it's raining outside a little bit, and I've got my 8-bit fire going in the fireplace behind me to keep me warm. And I just thought I'd make you a quick video about the maps that come in your starter set. You're brand new to HeroClix, so you've probably never seen anything quite like it. So this video, we're going to go over a few of the things that you need to know about your maps and how they work. So let's take a look. Here I have one of the maps from the starter set. This is Poison Ivy's arbory, where she grows her plants. So the first thing you'll notice is that everything on the map is done in squares. Grid squares. And we actually have grid numbers that run up and down the length of the map. And then across on the other end, we have an alphabet. So you can always map out exactly what square you're in if you need to. Now, every color on the map has an important meaning. All the squares that are open and have no color are clear terrain. Clear terrain means you can move your figures across them without any problems. So for example, we're just going to put Harley Quinn down on the map, and she can move into these squares however much movement she has available to her. Now you'll also notice there are these green squares. The green squares are hindering terrain. Think of them like jungle or forests, or in this case, a really dense garden. Hindering squares give you a bonus in the gameplay. They help your defense. It's harder to shoot at somebody that's hiding in jungle. But they also make you slower. So they will impede your movement as you move through them. Another key piece of terrain, if you look here in the center, this is a brown square. It's got a brown border around it, and it's nestled in the midst of the green squares. Squares with a brown square around them are blocking terrain. Blocking terrain would be anything like walls, stone, maybe something that's impassable, like a tank or a waterfall, or any number of objects. These squares can't be entered into. So you basically have to work your way around them. They can be broken and smashed or destroyed by some characters that are really strong. Now, if we look up here in the center, you're going to see some squares surrounded by a red line. This red line indicates that these squares are elevated. So everything out here is level 1. Everything inside the red line is level 2. It's raised up, and that's described on the map by these red squares. You'll also see on your map, if you bought a starter set with me, these squares right here have little arrows. These arrows are labeled 1 and 2. The first arrow is labeled number 1, which means it's equal to the elevation out here on the main floor of the map. This elevated arrow says 2 on it, meaning that everything up on this level is level 2. And the only way to access these areas is to go up and down the red arrows. They're a lot like ladders, if you want to think about it that way. Now, we've discussed very briefly hindering terrain, clear terrain, and elevated terrain. There's one more, and our blocking terrain. But there's one more type of terrain that's also on this map. These squares right here in the center are surrounded by a blue line. The blue line squares are water. Water terrain is hindering terrain just like forests. The difference is water terrain doesn't protect you if somebody wants to shoot at you, like a jungle would. And that makes sense. So these squares are clear squares for line of fire purposes for shooting, but they're hindering for movement. While the green squares are hindering for movement and for line of fire purposes. And of course, blocking squares can't be moved through or shot through. Now, your map in your starter will have all of these types of terrain on it. Some of these maps, like this one, have forests, bridges, rivers running through the center of them, but every map will have what we call a starting area. And I'm going to slide you over here so you can see. It's a little tough to see, but right here you'll see the pink, reddish pink square. It's mostly pink purple that surrounds this area of the map. This is your starting area. Your starting area is where you place your figures at the beginning of the game. They must be placed completely inside the starting area. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see it in comparison to the rest of the map. All of your characters on your force have to be deployed in the starting area at the beginning of the game. So basically, that's all the terrain that's going to be on any of the maps. Sometimes maps will have special terrain. If they do, they're going to be addressed with orange text. That orange text is completely optional. You can play with it if you want to, or not. Whatever you want to do. It's your game and you can run it however you like. The orange text usually makes things exciting or does something really unique and fun that might not normally happen in a game. But if you'll just remember, when you get your maps, you'll see hindering terrain, clear terrain, elevated terrain, blocking terrain, water, and of course your starting area. And that's all there is to it. Now all of those are described in your rule book, so you can look them up and you can read about each one of them individually. We'll be doing a couple more videos for you and showing you how these figures move through these terrains and how they interact with one another when they actually get to the point of combat, which is a lot of fun, and they try to KO each other. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.